and welcome to the third video of the Python series. And in this video we're going to be learning about let's say we're going to learn about for loops and basically loops, what they are and how you can use them. So let's just say you want to print something, right? You want to print like your name 5 times. So first let's open our file. So I'll just open the file in Vim and I want to print my name like this 5 times. Now one possibility of doing this would be using 5 print statements, right? I could just write this thing 5 times, like this whole thing. I'll just copy this and then just paste it 5 times and it will write this whole thing how many number of times I use the print function. So if I just save this and run this python 3 main.py, it prints it 5 times. But the thing is that this is not ideal. I'm repeating code. So best advice the best advice that I'll give you in coding is that never to repeat your code. Repetition should not be there. It should be minimal. Even if it has to be there, it should be minimal, and there should be a reason for it. So currently we're printing our name 5 times, and we're repeating the code every single line, which is not ideal. So this can be solved using loops. And how can we solve it? So for this, let's talk about some logic here. So let's say we want to print something 5 times. So we'll start from 1. We'll create a variable basically, and we'll call it I, and in the beginning it will be 0. So when I is 0, I will print it. Print name. Okay. Then I will increase I. How will I increase I? I will take its value, which is I, and I will increase it by 1. So I plus 1, and I'll put it inside I, which means that previous value of I, which was 0, it will be added by 1 and it will be stored inside I, which means I's value now is 1. Now I'll print the name again. Okay, now again I'll just increase the value of I. Now what's the value? 2. I'll do this until the value is less than 5. Okay, so here it's 0, here it's 1, 2, then it will be 3, 4, and then when it's 5, I'll stop. And that way I'll be able to print the name 5 times, because I found a way to like keep it in track how many times I'm printing. Now still we are like using multiple print statements, so there is something called while. So what while does is, for example, we had if, right? If I is less than 5. So what while does is, if runs the code only one time, right? If I is less than 2, whatever code we write here, it will run it only one time. But what while does is, it runs it until the condition actually becomes true. So if I write while I is less than 5, print name, so until this becomes true, it will keep on running this until this becomes false. Actually, yeah, it will keep on running this whatever's inside the while block. So right now let's just remove these lines. So let's just say we had, and also these ones. So in the beginning, let's just say we had I is equals to 0. Now what while will do is, so our computer will come here and see while I is less than 5. So 0 is less than 5. Okay, 0 is less than 5. So what do you want me to do? Print the name. Okay, I'll print it. Then again, after doing this, it will come back to while. Okay, now do you want, what do you want me to do? It will be like while I is less than 5. What is the value of I? It is 0. So it is always 0, which means it will always be true. It will run this like print it and then come back to while and then print it, then come back to while, and it will go in an infinite loop, which means it will keep on running forever. So although this is like not really a good program to write, but I'll just show you how this runs. Oh, I haven't defined name, so I'll just define name as well. Name is equals to Faisal. So if I run this now, it will keep going on. Like it's actually no, it's not stopping. And as I told you before, you can just press Ctrl C to stop any program. So as you can see, it printed it out so many times that my screen is now full of my names. So that's how while actually works. So whatever is inside the while whatever you called it, so whatever is inside the while block will be executed until the condition is true. Now how do we like remove this possibility of having an infinite loop? So what we will do is every time we print our name will increase I by 1. I is equals to I plus 1. Now what will happen? Let's come from the beginning. Okay, so I is 0. Okay, name is Faisal. Okay, so while I is less than 5, I is 0, 0 is less than 5, true. So I will print the name, print Faisal. Okay, let's print it. Computer printed it. Now it comes here, i's value is I plus 1. 0 plus 1, which is equals to 1. I will store that as I. So now i's value is 1. Now it will again come back to while 1, which is the new value of I, is less than 5, which is still true. It will print the name again. Now it will be like, okay, again increase the value of I, which will now become what? 2. So again it will come back to while. So 2 is less than 5, still true. Again print. Now again increase the value of I, which will now be 3, and 3 is still less than 5, which is true. So it will again print, and then again it will increase the value of I, which will be 4, and which is still true. So it will still print, which will be here. And now the value has become 5. After increasing to 5, it has become 5. The value of I is 5 now. So 5 is less than 5. That's not true. 5 is not less than 5. So then what will happen is, it will not run this code, it will come out here. Whatever is after this while block, after this indented block, it will come outside of it. So it will print this. And in order to verify that it actually prints this or not, let's just run this. Yep, it ran the loop 5 times and it printed out my name. Cool. So now we printed out our name. What if we just print out I? That will also work. Let's just print out I. And what do you think the output of this will be? You can pause the video and just think for yourself. Okay, so let me just tell you. So initially the value was 0, so it will print 0. Then it will increase it and print it 1. It will increase it, then 2, then 3, then 4, and it will not print 5. Why? Because when the value of I becomes 5 here, it will come back here, but it will check and see that it's false, so it won't be able to go to the print function. So it will come out of the while loop. So let's check what happens. Yes, so as I said, it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Now this is all about while loops. Now, what about there is some other loop called for loop. But before understanding for loop, let's just first learn about lists. So, as we know what are variables now, right? Variable is just one single entity, one single, like kind of like a box which has something inside it. So, right now, I is a variable which holds the value of 0. Name is a variable which holds my this value, which is a string, and the string is Faisal. So, a variable can hold only one thing, right? But a list can hold multiple things. So let's talk about list now. Let's delete everything. So lists are a collection of variables. No, even better, lists are a collection of multiple data. In the sense, like, suppose you have a number, but you do not want just one number. You want a list of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's how you create a list. So in order to create a list, we use these brackets, these ones. So the square brackets, we use these to create a list, and whatever is inside the list, we can have multiple items. So we can have numbers 1 comma 2 comma 3. We can have strings also. So Faisal is a name, and then Arish is a name. So these are all like strings, and you can have a list of anything, but just keep in mind that a list can only have the things that are of the same type. You cannot have a string and a number. That's not possible, because list doesn't allow that. You can only have a series or a collection of data that are of the same type. So this is a list of strings. Now let's create a list of numbers 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, so these are lists. Now what if I create a variable x is equals to 1 and I want it inside of my list? Now, as I said, a list can be a set of any data, whether it's variable or you are like entering the direct data, it doesn't matter. So if I create a list and just put x inside it, it is also a list, although it only has one element inside it, but it's still a list. So this list has three elements inside it, this has two, and this has one. They are all lists. You can add more data to it, 1 comma 2, and just make sure that the variable you have, the type should be same. So the type here is number, and here also it should be number. And also make sure, yeah, that's it for now. Now the same way we assign a name to a variable, the same way we can assign a name to a list. So let's just call it my underscore list equals to this. So I haven't told you about this, about naming things. So let's just go over that. So in all of programming languages, we just make sure that our variables start with a small letter. We never start our variable names with a capital letter. So that's why you must have seen like I'm using a small x. In using a capital letter in the beginning is not like, it's not a good practice. And separation of multiple words, for example, if I wanted first name as a variable, then in order to separate the two words, I use an underscore. This is called an underscore. You cannot use a space in a variable name. So your variable name cannot be Faisal, oh sorry, last space name. These a variable name cannot have a space. Anything that has that you specify a name to in any language cannot have a space. Like for example, a list, or in the future we'll learn about our own functions, where we'll create our own functions. Like we have print function, right? We'll create our own, and the same thing works for functions as well. You cannot name them with a capital letter in the beginning, and in order to separate two words, you'll have to use underscore, which is a good practice, and you cannot use space. The space thing is like it will give you an error if you try to use that. Now if you don't want to use underscore, you can do like first all small, but then in order to show that these are like two separate names, like two separate words in a single name, you can use a capital letter, so that we know like first ends here, and then this is the starting of a new word. So that's how you can specify variable names in Python. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's how you specify variable names. Now let's print this list. I'll just print it out. I'll just delete this, because the thing is that in Python you cannot just directly write this, right? You have to give it a name. Like, yeah, makes sense, right? Okay, so let's just print my underscore list and save it and run it. I deleted x, didn't I? Yep. So x is equals to 1. So it also gives you like pretty like explainable, the explanation is pretty good in Python errors. Like it just literally said that x is not defined, so you can check if x is even there or not, and if it's not there, just add it. Pretty really easy. So yeah, we printed out the list and it printed out exactly the same. So that's all about list. So our main point now was for us to learn about the for loop. Now the reason I talked about list before talking about the for loop is because for actually works on a list in Python. Although it doesn't work in other languages on a list only, but in Python it works on a list. So the thing is that while we had for a condition, right? While would always while checks for a condition, but for actually iterates through a list. So let's take an example. We have our list here, right? So for what it will do is you will give it your list, and in each iteration it will go over each element one by one. So let's just write it. So we write for x, or just I, in my list. Print I. So what it will do is it will go to my list. Okay, so let's just go line by line. So it's like for I in my list. So it's like, okay, I don't know I, but I know my list. Okay, so my list is here. So it's saying for I in my list. Okay, so he means that I'll have to go one by one in my list, and when I'm at each element, I'll name it as I. So instead of using my list, right, we'll just create a new list, and we'll have it here. New list is equals to 1 2 3. Okay, so it will go over and it will be like, okay, for I in new list, okay, I'm at 1 right now. Whatever you want to do, you just do it here. So I want to print, he wants to print I. So my current I is 1. So it will print 1. Now it will come back to for again. So for I in new list, it will be like, okay, I covered this all code has ended. Yeah, this all code has ended. Now it will come to 2 and be like, whatever you want to do with 2, you do that, and then it will come to 3 and we run the code for 3. So basically we are just moving along a list. We're like, okay, take this list and select each element from that list so that we can execute our code for that single element. So as you saw that earlier, if we try to print the new list for print a list, it would also print the brackets. So this is a good way to know, like if you want to print a list with just the numbers on a new line, you can just use this way, because it will print every single element of that list, and that's it. It will just print that only. So let's just write it and run it. So this was our old list, this is our new list, and this is what we're doing in the for loop. We're going over every single element and we're just printing it. So that's what we are doing in the for loop. So that's what for loop is used for. But for loop is majority also used with another function called range. What range does is, you it is a function which basically takes three things, but commonly we only give it one. So what we do is, we specify to this function the highest number it will have, and it gives us a list. So let's just say uh, range is the function, and we just give inside these brackets 5. So what it will do is, it will give us a list, and the list will have from 0 to 4 till 4. So it will have all the numbers from 0 up till less than 5. So the number we specified, it will have all the numbers which are less than the numbers we specified to the range function. Now what if we don't want it to start from 0? What if I want it to start from 1? Then we'll have to specify another number in the front, in before our last number, and that will be our starting point. So in the range function we specify two things here: the starting point and the ending point. So if we specify the starting point, it will start from 1, but it will not end at 5. Why? Because by default it takes the number which is less than 5, and that's how they made this function. If you want up till 5, you'll have to here insert 6, then only in the list you'll get 5. But this is not how we use this function. So how we use it is in for loop. So if I add here, instead of new list, I can directly write range function, and I'll just specify the higher limit of my list that I want. So I want my list to start from 1 and end at 5. So if I want it to end at 5, I'll enter 6. That's it. So I'll just save it, and let's see if it runs or not. So as you can see, it started at 1 and it ended at 5 because we wrote 6 inside the range function. Now there is one more thing that often goes into range function, but many people do not know about this. So this might be a bit confusing, or it might be not. So let's talk about it. Let's just have the same thing we had before. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. I'll take a bigger list. Also you don't have to specify it like this, I'm just trying to explain. I'll just do equals to, because these both things will be equal. So from 1 till 9 I specified this. Now I don't want consecutive numbers. Consecutive numbers basically mean which are like continuous numbers. So 2 comes after 1, right? So it will 1 2 3 4 5. There is no gap in between. I don't want that. I want like a gap in between. So I want 1, I don't want 2. I want 3, I don't want 4. I want 5, I don't want 6. So I want 1 3 5 7. So how do I do that? So currently, as you can see, we are iterating plus 1, right? So 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, 4 plus 1 is 5. But what if we do 1 plus 2? 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. So we get our answer. So there is one more number we can specify in the range function, which is called the iterator. What it basically does is, so currently we are adding 1, right? So by default it has the value 1 here. If we don't enter anything, it considers it as 1. That's why it's giving us this. But if we replace it by 2, it will give us 1, and then 1 plus 2, which will be equals to 3. 1 plus 2, which will be equals to 3, and 3 plus 2, which will be equals to 5, and 5 plus 2, which will be equals to 7, and 7 plus 2, which will be equals to 9. But since 9 is greater than or equals to 9 that we specified here, 9 will not be taken, and 8 will also be not taken. So our answer will be this. So let's just check it. You know, delete this line, and here in range I'll specify 9 comma 2. So now it will be like 1 3 5 7. Let's see. So 1 3 5 7. So this is how we got an iterator. We used an iterator to get the specific numbers that we wanted, and by default the iterator has a value of 1. Now what if I want 1, then 1 plus 3, which is equals to 4, 4 plus 3, which is equals to 7, and 7 plus 3, which is equals to 10. Then I'll use the iterator as a value of 3. I'll specify instead of 2 here, instead of 2, I'll specify 3. That will do the job. So this is it for loops, while loops, and lists in Python. And we also learned about the range function. I hope you understood everything, and if not, you can just comment any questions you have, and I'll resolve in the next video or in the comments only. So yeah, thanks so much.